Imagine walking through your front door at 7 in the evening. The commute was long, the daylight is entirely gone, and the refrigerator is full of ingredients that require 45 minutes of preparation you simply do not have the energy to execute. So, you open an application on your phone, tap a few buttons, and pay a premium to have a warm meal handed to you 30 minutes later. Society has conditioned us to view this as a failure of discipline or a lack of willpower. But if we pull back the lens and observe the mechanics of the household economy, what we are actually witnessing is not laziness. It is structural survival. It is the friction of a modern economy, where time has become our scarcest resource, and we are forced to buy it back at retail prices. The way we spend is changing fundamentally, becoming more frictionless, more immediate, and increasingly detached from physical limits. Consider that the amount of physical cash the average person keeps on their person dropped from $81 in 2023 to just $67 by 2024. According to the Atlanta Fed survey of consumer payment choice, we are outsourcing our friction and digitizing our convenience. But this outsourcing has a silent, compounding cost. And this hidden cost is the exact structural reason why accumulating your first $100,000 feels like clawing your way up a sheer glass wall, while accumulating your second $100,000 often feels like coasting downhill. The journey to that first major financial milestone is rarely derailed by a single, catastrophic luxury purchase. Instead, it is eroded by 1,000 tiny, recurring subscriptions to convenience. When you operate in a constant state of time deficit, you are structurally forced to hire paid substitutes for your own labor. You pay for meal delivery because you lack the time to cook. You pay for a faster toll road because you lack the time to sit in traffic. You pay for grocery delivery because spending 2 hours at the store on a Saturday feels like surrendering your only sliver of freedom. Over time, these individual purchases morph into a recurring fixed overhead. It becomes a hidden second rent, a monthly minimum required simply to keep the machinery of your life running so you can continue going to work. Understanding this shifts the perspective entirely. You are not necessarily bad with money. You are heavily taxed by time poverty. This hidden second rent hits certain demographics with ruthless precision. We built an entire economic structure around the historical assumption of a dedicated caretaker remaining at home, but that reality has largely vanished. As of 2024 data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that dual-income families make up 49.6% of all married couple families, when both partners are trading their time for wages. In the marketplace, the household time deficit effectively doubles. The most glaring manifestation of this deficit is the sheer cost of childcare. It is the ultimate paid substitute. According to Child Care Aware of America in 2024, the average cost of childcare reached $13,128 a year. That represents a staggering 29% increase since 2020. And the pressure on this front is not stabilizing or retreating. The Bank of America Institute noted in October 2025 that childcare inflation was running at 5.2% a year over year as of September. That means it is growing 1.5 times faster than overall consumer inflation. When your baseline cost to exist and operate in the workforce is inflating faster than your wages, the gap where savings should logically exist is completely absorbed by the second rent. But let us step back and examine the physical infrastructure that moves us through this system. Transportation is not just about moving from one geographic coordinate to another. It is a profound financial anchor. The Bureau of Labor Statistics Consumer Expenditures Survey for 2024 reveals that the average household spends $13,318 a year on transportation. That consumes 17.0% of total household spending. We buy cars we can barely afford, we finance them at high interest rates, and we pay for maintenance, insurance, and fuel largely because public transit is either non-existent in our area or demands too much of our already depleted time. We are buying velocity, we are paying to shrink the map, and society offers very little institutional help with this burden. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the Economics Daily, only 10% of private sector workers had access to commuting subsidies in 2024. To truly see how brutally hard this makes the early stages of wealth accumulation, let us run the mathematics on a hypothetical household. Let us call them the standardized modern family earning a respectable combined gross income of $95,000 a year. After taxes, health insurance premiums, and standard deductions, their actual take-home pay is roughly $68,000. That leaves them with $5,666 a month to allocate. The Bureau of Labor Statistics Consumer Expenditures Survey for 2024 places average housing costs at $26,266 a year. That is 33.4% of total spending. For our family, housing takes $2,188 right off the top every single month. They are left with $3,478. Next, we subtract the transportation anchor at $13,318 a year. That equates to another $1,109 a month. Now we introduce the second rent. They have one young child. Childcare based on the $13,128. Annual average strips away another $1,094 a month. Our family is now staring at a balance of $1,275. We have not even accounted for groceries, utilities, clothing, medical copays, or debt repayment. If they spend $800 a month on groceries and basic household supplies, they have $475 left. And then the physical exhaustion sets in. They order food delivery twice a week to buy back a few hours of rest. That is another $200 gone. They pay for a yard service because spending Sunday pushing a lawnmower means losing their only meaningful time with their child. Another $100 vanishes. The actual leftover capital for saving and investing shrinks to perhaps $175 a month. That equates to $2,100 a year. It is easy to look at those numbers and feel a sense of quiet despair. The root of this tilt is a measurable economic condition known as time poverty. Research from the Levy Economics Institute in 2025 indicated that roughly 39% of single adults experience severe time poverty. Furthermore, the burden is not distributed evenly across the population. Employed women face a time poverty penalty that is 9 points higher than their male counterparts, largely due to disproportionate responsibilities in unpaid domestic labor and household management. When you are time poor, your cognitive decision-making horizon shrinks drastically. You cannot optimize for the long term because your mental bandwidth is completely consumed by the short-term crisis of getting through the week. You pay a premium for convenience because you literally cannot afford the alternative. Naturally, this dynamic is not absolute. This depends heavily on your geographical location and your local cost of living. A family residing in a dense urban center with highly reliable public transit might be able to completely eliminate that $13,318 transportation anchor, freeing up significant capital to accelerate their wealth building. Still, a common critique arises when discussing these structural barriers. Many argue that if people simply developed more discipline, completely stopped buying coffee from cafes, and cooked every single meal from scratch, they would easily save their first $100,000. While there is absolute truth in the mathematical power of extreme frugality, this counterargument fails to respect the physiological limits of human exhaustion. Willpower is a finite, depletable biological resource. When you demand that a person working 50 hours a week while raising children also meticulously optimize every single penny of their spending without ever paying for a shortcut, you are demanding a level of sustained perfection that ignores human biology. Reasonable people disagree on where the line is accurately drawn between a structural necessity and a pure luxury. Is grocery delivery a decadent luxury or a vital mental health preservation tool? Furthermore, some suggest that the solution is to simply step off the treadmill entirely. They advise working fewer hours, reducing the time deficit, and subsequently cutting out all convenience costs. But that viewpoint ignores how the modern labor market actually functions. Hourly wage penalties for part-time work combined with the catastrophic loss of employer-sponsored health care and retirement matching often mean that stepping back financially penalizes you far more than the savings you generate by cutting out conveniences. Of course, this entire framework does not apply if you happen to live in a multi-generational household, where grandparents or extended family provide free, reliable childcare and share the daily burden of meal preparation and home maintenance. In those historically normal but currently rare scenarios, the time deficit is dramatically reduced and the household's capacity to save that first $100,000 accelerates massively. The transition from the first $100,000 to the second $100,000 is where the physics of money fundamentally change. During the accumulation of the first milestone, 100% of your financial progress is generated by your physical labor. You are pushing a massive boulder up a steep hill, fighting against the heavy gravity of the second rent. Your time is being converted into money at a painfully slow rate, because the friction of simply existing consumes most of your economic output. But once you cross that threshold, a new worker quietly enters your household. Let us return to the mathematics of a representative family. Imagine they somehow endured a decade of extreme, exhausting discipline, perhaps earned a few modest promotions, ruthlessly minimized their lifestyle creep, and finally scraped together $100,000 in invested assets. If those broad market investments yield a relatively standard, historical return of 7% annually, that money is now generating roughly $7,000 a year in the background. That breaks down to about $583 a month. That capital is now paying for a significant portion of their structural conveniences without requiring a single hour of their physical time. The investments can essentially cover half the cost of their transportation anchor, or they can cover the majority of the grocery budget entirely. The surprising ease of the second $100,000 is entirely about the uncoupling of time from money. When you have $0, an unexpected $1,000 car repair represents a catastrophic crisis. It might require putting the expense on a credit card at 24% interest. This introduces a new recurring fixed cost to your monthly minimum, further suffocating your ability to save. You fall backward down the hill, but when you have $100,000, that exact same $1,000 car repair is merely a minor administrative annoyance. You liquidate a tiny fraction of an asset or utilize a cash buffer, pay the bill, and continue moving forward. You stop paying the invisible poverty tax of late fees, high-interest debt, and suboptimal desperate decisions. Furthermore, by the time you have accumulated that first critical mass of wealth, your relationship to the labor market has usually shifted. You are older, you have acquired specialized skills, and you likely command a higher hourly equivalent salary. The time poverty penalty begins to ease, not just because you have capital, but because your time itself becomes more valuable in the marketplace. If your experience allows you to earn $50 an hour instead of $20 an hour, paying $20 for a meal delivery changes from a mathematically disastrous trade to a highly rational arbitrage of your time. The structural costs of the second rent remain relatively flat, but your capacity to outearn them scales up significantly. The first $100,000 requires you to bleed time. Understanding this invisible architecture allows you to stop treating financial struggles as a personal moral failing. The profound fatigue you feel is the direct result of a system designed to relentlessly monetize your time deficit. The conveniences you buy are not necessarily weaknesses, they are often the highly logical coping mechanisms of an exhausted workforce. The overarching goal in the early stages of wealth building is not necessarily to eliminate every single convenience and grind yourself into dust. It is to ruthlessly and unsentimentally audit which conveniences are genuinely preserving your sanity and earning potential, and which have simply become mindless recurring overheads. The next time you look at your budget, do not just look at where the dollars are going. Look at what those dollars are substituting for. Are they buying back time that you can use to rest, recharge, and increase your earning potential, or are they just maintaining a baseline level of survival in a life that feels much too fast? If you view every convenience not as a small daily treat, but as a capitalized liability against your future freedom, your decisions will naturally begin to shift. The hill is incredibly steep and the gravity is undeniably heavy, but the mathematics of the summit remain absolutely real. What is one specific convenience in your life that you currently view as an absolute necessity, but might actually just be a symptom of a mismanaged time deficit? Think carefully on that, because the answer might be the key to unlocking your first major breakthrough.